Good morning. We'll call the June 16th City Council meeting to order. I'm going to ask Councilman Buchanan if he would lead us in our invocation and pledge. Would you please stand?
Let us bow this morning. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we come, first of all, thanking you for allowing us to see another day. We come knowing that your grace and mercy is going with us each and every day. Father, as we go into the budget hearings, we pray that you would render us wisdom, courage, knowledge, and conviction to do the things that is necessary and vote on the things that is necessary for the entire city of Jackson. Father, we understand that we have a pandemic, and Father, only you can cure that pandemic, and we ask that you do that. Father, we understand that unrest in this world, and particularly in the United States, with civil injustice. We pray, Father, whether black, white, or brown, that we come together in love and in unity. Father, help us to understand that love would conquer all. Forgive us, Father, of our many sins that we have transgressed against us. Lead us and guide us from one good grace to another. We'll be forever grateful to you and give you the praise and give you the glory, for thou art worthy to be praised. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Item 3 under the agenda is roll call. Sandy, you'll see that all council members are present. Item 4 is approval of the minutes of the June 9th special called meeting. If there are no additions or corrections to those minutes, they'll stand approved as read. No proclamations. Invitation for public comment. If anyone wishing to speak on any items under first reading, we open the public hearing. Raise your hand and be acknowledged at that time. First reading. An ordinance to establish the FY 21, July 1st, 2020, June 3rd, 2021 operating and capital budget and the FY 21 property tax rate for the city of Jackson. Call on City Recorder Bobby Arnold to make a presentation.
Good morning. Thank you. Give me just 1 second here to get organized. Okay, as the mayor described, this ordinance would take care of a couple of business items, and what you would be approving would be both our annual budget for the FY 21 year, as well as establishing our tax rate for the FY 21 year. So what I would like to do and recommend is that we review the tax rate proposal first, and so I would direct you to page 7, section 7 of the proposed ordinance. Give me just a second to find that. Put it up here. Okay, everybody okay? Is that okay? All right, what we're proposing is the same tax rate for the FY 21 year that we currently have. It's $1.96.19. That's the rate. There is one difference this year, and that would be in the allocation of those property taxes for FY 21. We're proposing that 1.4377 of that total be directed to the general fund, and .5242 of that total be directed to the debt service fund. That's about 73.28% to the general fund and about 26.72% to the debt service fund. That's a change from the last couple of years. It's a change from this current year. This current year, the tax rate is distributed to $1.44 to the general fund, .4610 to the debt service fund, and .0609 to the Capital Outlay fund. That change is necessitated by the fact that we've, the 2021 year, we have an increase in our debt service requirements, which we'll address that when we look at the debt service fund here in a second. But that necessitated that reallocation of the property tax dollars. So any questions?
Bobby, I know last week, we tabled the vote, on the percentage toward debt service, is that correct?
Well, no, not exactly. So, what we tabled at our last meeting was, our debt management policy, just an internal policy that we have, which, has several provisions, but one of those provisions is, a cap on the percentage of your debt service as a percentage of total property tax revenues. And,
That's a
right.
little different than,
That's correct. So, and depending on the action that the council takes, on this budget, it's likely that, but probably in the July meeting, that we'll need to consider revising that policy at that time.
Bobby, can you give me an estimate of, for each, let's say, for each penny that we would increase our property tax rate, approximately how much revenue would that raise?
$175,000.
Per penny?
Yes, sir. Okay, any further questions about that provision of the ordinance? Okay,
Oh.
thank
I'm sorry. Will we have a chance to come back to this as we go through this budget and realize
Yes.
Sure,
the
absolutely,
deficits
yeah.
that we're looking at? Okay.
Right.
Will we do that by an amendment, or
Yeah, it would be an amendment to the ordinance, because we'd have to change if the council wishes to do that. So what we'll do is, we'll let Bobby present everything that he has. We'll go through departments, talk about that, and then before we get the motion for the ordinance, then we can discuss if there's any changes the council wants to have to the ordinance.
thank you.
Okay. I appreciate your patience this morning. What I would recommend, that I think would be beneficial not only for the council members, but also beneficial for our department directors that are here and beneficial to the public that might be here or either watching this morning, would be that we take just a brief few minutes and allow me to kind of present just a summary of the budget, kind of at a very high level. I think that would be beneficial. As we move through this, what you'll see, the way the ordinance is laid out, there's a section for each fund. And so I'm not going to take time to comment on all of the funds. Some of them are pretty self-explanatory and small, but the larger funds, I would like to take a few minutes and just address the general changes associated with those funds. And we would begin with the general fund. That's on page 2 of the ordinance. In the way that these schedules are laid out for each fund is we've got the actual audited results for FY19, the estimated results for FY20. These estimates for FY20 were originally based on February year-to-date numbers, and they've been updated within reason, appropriately where necessary, for March and April results, and so that's the numbers that you're looking at in the estimated column for 2020. And then we've got the FY21 proposed results. So as we look at the general fund and we look at the relationship for FY20 compared to where we were in FY19, you'll see that revenues are down from FY '19 to FY '20 by about $4 million. That's about 5.5%, a significant drop. You will also note that expenses are down in estimated FY '20 compared to FY '19 by a similar number, but a 4.4% reduction in expenses. And we transitioned from a small surplus in FY '19 to an estimated small deficit in FY '20. And I'd like to kind of highlight some of the material numbers that create that situation. I believe you have this handout in your information that we provided.
In the very back cover, it's loose.
Give me just a second to locate that. Everybody find that all right?
No,
No?
very back. There you go. What am I gonna do now?
Okay, so these would be material changes in revenue from FY '19 to FY '20. This is not intended to represent every single change or reconcile to the dollar the changes in revenues from year to year, but these would be the material differences. The first broad category is taxes. As you look at those amounts and the accounts that are affected, primarily what's driving those decreases in revenue from FY '19 would be the COVID-19 impact. Same situation for license and permits. Another factor that's significant in FY '20 compared to FY '19, which is common for a lot of years with the city, is the changes in grants from one year to the next, right? So you can see that we had substantial less grant revenue in FY '20 than we did in FY '19. And moving down a little bit, in terms of intergovernmental revenues, a decrease of over $500,000 in the Hall income tax revenues from the state of Tennessee. What's driving that is a few years ago, the state implemented the Improve Act to help fund roads. And one of the ways they did that is they phased out the Hall income tax and also reduced taxes on groceries. So that had a significant impact on this particular year. And then the final category where we saw a decrease was in usage of monies and properties. And I would just speak to the public facilities category combined. As you know, our public facilities have been shut down now for, I guess, sometime in March, and will remain so through June. So that's some of the main revenue variances from FY '19 to FY '20. Any questions about those? Okay, trying to move maybe a little quicker here. Here are some of the material expense variances from FY '19 to FY '20. Again, these are meant to be material changes from year to year. Everybody find that okay? Okay. Not meant to reconcile to the dollar for every type of change. They're listed by general expense category, and then some by specific accounts, and some are just listed at the cost center level. For instance, under general government, where we say fees and commissions, that's a combination of several different accounts, as an example. As you look at those, I'll be happy to entertain any questions. In the general government category, you can certainly see as the grant revenue went down, the grant expenses went down as well. And won't cover each one of these lines, but as you're looking through this, if you have questions about them, please let me know.
I had a question relative to community relations. Could you explain that variance?
Yes, sir. So community relations and marketing as well. What's taking place there is that there's a couple of things. At some point, about halfway through this fiscal year, I believe, the decision was made to begin to charge community relations and marketing expense related to the Jackson Generals, which had previously been charged in this general government category, to move that to the ballpark at Jackson category. And I think the second factor that's implementing this is the fact that the ball season has, I guess, been canceled so far this year, so that's reduced some of that expense as well.
Thank
If you look under Public Works, toward the bottom there, there's a couple of accounts that are footnoted, animal care combined, and street maintenance combined. And then if you'll drop down under Parks and Rec at groundskeeping, you see substantial increases there from year over year, but that's possibly not totally driven, but primarily driven by the decision we made to redirect expenses that were previously in the solid waste fund to the general fund where they're more appropriately reflected. So we accomplished that in the FY20 year. So that explains a big portion of those increases. And then finally, at the very bottom of this schedule, transfers to other funds. Now remember, what we're looking at here is the transition from FY19 to FY20. So back in FY19, there was $710,200 that was transferred from the general fund over to the debt service fund to retire the debt on what's referred to as the Short Street building for the police department. So that expense went away, right, from 19 to 20. That transfer went away. However, there are three transfers that we've talked quite a bit about in this meeting previously this year, right? $500,702, a transfer to the solid waste fund to write off the receivable that's due to the general fund from the solid waste fund, $400,000 for a similar transaction between the general fund and the Sportsplex fund. And then finally, $101,362, a transfer from the general fund to the debt service fund. Now, let me speak to these transfers just a little bit more, because I know there's been a lot of discussion about these. So both the $500,000 transfer to the solid waste fund and the $400,000 transfer, those are the estimated not to exceed numbers. Those numbers are still to be determined as we close out the fiscal year. I'm feeling more and more confident about the $500,000 number for the solid waste fund. Maybe not as confident about the $400,000 for the Sportsplex fund, because some of their operations have been interrupted this year since we made that estimate, but I think that's still probably hopefully a good number. And the last one is the transfer to the debt service fund, and I apologize. I've probably done my best to confuse you with all this, but I apologize for that. But the amendment that you all passed, I guess the last couple of meetings, was an amount not to exceed $500,000, right? And I addressed that when we asked for your approval of that, noting that that was an amount not to exceed, and I was being conservative. The debt service, as we move toward June 30th, the debt service expenses are a little bit easier to project than, say, solid waste or Sportsplex expenses. So we've kind of honed in on this number a little bit better. And so I think the transfer at the end, when we're through, from the general fund to the debt service fund is going to be more like $101,000 rather than $500,000. But please remember, all of these are still estimates at this point, and we'll finalize those later. So any questions about that or those numbers? Okay, I'm gonna try to pick up the pace here just a little bit. So revenues were down 5% in FY20 from FY19. Expenses down 4%. We went from a small surplus in 19 to a small deficit in 20. Everybody got that baseline? Okay, so let's move ahead and look from FY20 to FY '21 for the general fund. And again, if you'll start by looking at the budget ordinance itself, you can see that from FY '20 estimated to FY '21 proposed, there is a small increase in revenues for the general fund. And I'm going to go through that in just a second, but about, what is that? About $450,000 to $500,000 increase, 0.6% year over year. The appropriations or expenses in the general fund, there's an increase of about $4 million or about 6% from FY '20 to FY '21. And currently, the proposed ordinance reflects a $4.2 million deficit for the general fund. So let's take just a second and look at some of the material variances that contribute to that.
Mr. Chairman.
Again, yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
let me just ask one quick question,
Sure.
Mr. Arnold. Good morning. The ballpark,
Right.
what is their lease? The amount of their lease?
The monthly
Yeah,
lease payment, $2,500 a month.
Talking about their rent to the city?
yeah.
Yeah, $2,500 a month.
I think that's right. Okay. We'll look a little bit more closely maybe at that cost center. Oh, okay, so here are the material revenue variances from FY '20 estimated to FY '21 proposed. As you're looking at that, starting with the broad category of taxes, please note that we do have what I would consider nominal increases in property taxes projected for this next year. That's based on a nominal or slight increase in the assessed valuation and our historical collection percentage of 97%. So that's kind of where those numbers come from. We have projected a rebound, if you will, in beer and liquor taxes from this current year we're in now. Same for business taxes, and I should have mentioned previously on business taxes on the previous slide, not only the COVID impact directly, but the state extended the timeline for businesses to remit their business tax. So some of it is a timing issue from year to year, but when you compare business taxes from FY '20 to FY '21, there is an increase. You can see the local sales tax, continued impact of the COVID, impact on our sales tax collections and on our hotel, motel collections continuing into next year. Again, grants, they vary from year to year. Had a lot more grant revenue in 19, a little bit less than 20, picks up again in 21. Got those outlined there for you. Intergovernmental revenues, you can see the gas tax, excise tax, gross receipts and sales tax, that we anticipate that impact from the state shared revenues, again, primarily driven by COVID-19, I believe. And remember, these are decreases in addition and above to the decreases that we experienced in FY '20. Okay. And then finally, the last line on here, this Sportsplex revenue. One of the significant changes in this next year's budget is the proposal to consolidate the Sportsplex fund into the general fund, to combine those funds. So that would have a $1.1 million impact on revenue in the general fund. It all has significant impact on expenses, which we'll talk about here in a second. So any questions about those revenues?
Excuse me. Hotel motel tax, I guess the reason we're seeing a $75,000 reduction rather than more significant reduction is because the hotel motel taxes that were previously allocated, that portion that was allocated towards the Sportsplex is now going into the general fund. A portion of, I know there's a complicated percentage base, but I would expect, based off of the reporting that we've received, that would be more significant.
It's a combination of what you're describing. The numbers that we have projected are the numbers that we received from the CEDC. And then there is the impact that sales tax revenue that previously was in the Sportsplex that was pledged by the county that's, goes back to the county as well.
Okay.
These are the CEDC numbers, so.
And then in our intergovernmental, those taxes, those referencing what the state is currently telling us?
And they've not changed now for,
Okay.
a few weeks. They changed 2 or 3 times early in the pandemic, but they've stuck with these projections. The per capita, the state revenues that are allocated on a per capita basis, are still, what they have recommended. Okay.
We're not talking about taking away from Sportsplex, are we?
Taking away from the sports
Yeah,
fund.
cutting back on them.
Well, we're consolidating the Sportsplex fund into the general fund. That's a recommendation from the comptroller's office. Most of there was a sales tax agreement that someone will have to help me, that dates back several years ago, to where the county was pledging some of their sales tax collections to the Sportsplex fund. It's my understanding that ended, I believe, at the end of December. Is that correct? So
Yes.
in that sense of the word, the Sportsplex fund would be losing.
Well, there's money in
That
that industrial board out there, isn't there?
I think you're speaking to the
Speaking
TIF
to the-
district.
TIF dollars,
Huh?
are you speaking of the TIF dollars?
Yeah.
TIF dollars.
Those are just for capital only, it's not operating. So what we're doing is we're moving from a special enterprise fund of the Sportsplex into a Sportsplex being a fund of the general fund.
Well, all I can say is, this is a moneymaker if it's run right, and this is a quality of life of Jackson, and we start taking away from it, we've already lost, and we're gonna lose the whole thing if we mess around with it.
I don't know, we're not taking away from it.
Huh?
We're moving into the general fund, we're just taking away from the special enterprise. So we don't have to transfer money from our general fund to a special enterprise, we don't have to transfer money around,
Why?
because the comptroller recommended it.
Oh. Thank God for the comptroller.
Okay. All right, so let's quickly
No
look
money
at
going
the
away.
material changes in expenses from FY '20 to FY '21 for the general fund. If you'll try to locate this schedule in your information, we can review this together. I'm not gonna comment on every line, but I will try to entertain questions. Everybody find that okay?
The last page,
Sir?
the last page.
It's headed up, City of Jackson FY '21 budget, general fund expenses, material variances, and the column they're heading is from FY '21 from FY '20. You find that?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Just a few comments at the high level, and see if you have any questions. Certainly, as the grant revenues are increased in FY '21 from FY '20, so the related grant expenses are there as well. We have a significant decrease in the cost of our projected, what we refer to as terminal leave. This is primarily driven from the fact that we had the early retirement in FY '20, and those associated costs are gone away. We have a 7% increase in the cost of our health plan with no change in the cost sharing with employees. That ratio on cost sharing, we target 70-30, 70 the city, 30 employees. And we projected a 7% increase in the cost of that plan. One Jackson Civic Master Plan, we did not have any expenditures in that line item, or very few this current year. Those funds are gonna be needed this next year, as I understand it, related to the Wolf Lodge project, so we need to be prepared for that. The others are listed here if you have some comments. Stormwater operations, about halfway down the page, has a pretty significant increase, but that's related to a specific project that I believe you're gonna entertain the contract on that maybe later in this meeting this morning. And then finally, toward the bottom of the page, you can see the Sportsplex cost that will impact the general fund next year as we consolidate those particular funds. And of course, we've talked about the transfers from the general fund that we have in FY '20, right? We talked about those. They will not repeat themselves in FY '21. Okay, everybody with me on that? So that's just a general roll forward, if you will, from FY '19 to '20 and '21. And I'll conclude my comments on the general fund just to kind of help you frame it all. If you'll look back at the budget ordinance again, when you look at the FY '21, and you won't see these numbers on here, but if you'll just let me share them with you. When you look at the FY '21 budget for the general fund, and you compare that to the FY '19, which was kind of the last, I guess, pre-COVID year, that we have, and FY '20 has certainly been a year of transition and a lot of perspectives, and we've had all the transfers in '20, and we don't have them in '21. There's been a lot of moving parts. So one good benchmark for you guys to kind of look at would be, well, how do these numbers for FY '21 maybe compare to FY '19? And that type of comparison even has its limits, and you have to really understand what you're looking at. But nonetheless, if you look at FY '21 revenue compared to FY '19 revenue for the general fund, it's down 4.9% from revenues in FY '19, and expenses are up 1.3% in FY '21 in total from FY '19.
Bobby, before we get to the department heads, could we briefly go over the capital outlay?
Yeah, I'm gonna go through the rest of the ordinance. I really wanna
Okay,
get through it.
all right.
I'm gonna go through it much quicker. I did wanna take a little time on the general fund. I hope that was helpful. Okay, so, back to the ordinance. Sportsplex is the next fund. You'll notice the FY '21, column is blank for the budget because that's being moved to the general fund. Next page in the ordinance, this would be page 3. Really no comment on the community development fund at the top. Solid waste fund, just one comment here. Remember when you look at FY '20 results for the solid waste fund, there's 2 high impact items that you need to take note of. One is in the revenue section in FY '20, there's the $500,000 transfer from the general fund. And then down in the expenses, you need to remember that we transferred or moved expense from the solid waste fund over to the general fund for animal care, property and leaf maintenance, and street sweeping. Okay. No comment on the police drug fund. For the Metro Drug Fund on the next page, no comment. Debt Service Fund in the middle of the page, just a couple of comments here. In the revenue section, transfers in from other funds, you can see the transfer for the Short Street building that we described in 2019, and then the $101,000 transfer from the general fund in FY '20. No transfers projected for next year. When you look at the transfers to other funds in the debt service, about halfway down the page, $8,844,000 in FY '19, $6.2 million in FY '20. You need to remember what those are the debt issues that we had in each of those years where the funds went into the debt service fund and were later transferred out to the Capital Outlay fund. No debt is proposed in this new FY '21 budget, so you don't see any transfers in the FY '21 year. And by the way, if you'll just, while you're thinking about the debt service, if you'll just look forward to page 6 in the budget ordinance, and we'll get to this page, I'll put it up there on the screen here in a second, but page 6 in the budget ordinance, section 3 lays out our debt for this this next fiscal year. And you can see if you have any questions, we can talk about that. But, back on page 4, Mayor, Capital Outlay Fund, for FY '21. Here are the numbers for capital outlay. Please remember and make note again, in FY '21, there are no tax dollars going into the capital outlay fund. The grant line next year, $6.6 million in revenues. That's a combination of the state grant, which I think is 1.5 million and some change. And then there are 2 other road projects. The South Bypass project, which is a grant-funded project. At this point, it's still 100% funded, no match. And then the completion of the F.E. Wright Drive, which that project does have a 20% city match. The $113,000 in the capital outlay revenue for next year, that's funds from the Improve Act. We've done our research. There's a new piece of pothole technology that our city needs desperately, and we are allowed to use Improve Act funds for that. So we're going to direct $113,000 of those funds from the general fund to the capital outlay fund to fund the acquisition of that piece of equipment. So if you'll look at page 6, section 4, and I'll try to put that up there. This is on page 6, section 4 of your ordinance. This is some detail on the capital outlay fund for this next year. The way that the comptroller likes to see this in the budget ordinance is in 2 categories. The first box they describe as pending capital projects. These are projects that we historically have classified as carryover items. That would mean that these items were approved in this current year budget, FY '20. They were encumbered by a purchase order or a contract or both. So they've already been approved. They will not need to be, quote unquote, reapproved. They've already been approved, right? But we will need to allow for the cash funding for these items in our FY '21 capital outlay fund. So those items are identified there for you. They total $7.1 million. The big ones there would be the the grants on the 2 road projects that I described, F.E. Wright and 45 Bypass. The new fire department truck that was in this past year's budget and has been ordered. It's not going to be here, I think, until August or something like that. Will be paid for then, so that's a pretty substantial cash requirement next year. And then the last report that I received on the city court building, there have been encumbrances made against the budget for this year, but some of that money will actually not be paid until the following year. And now I will tell you, I've been working with some of our directors in recent days. Some of these projects are changing daily, and so we might need to adjust these numbers a little bit before next week. And basically what the adjustments would be we might expend a little bit less money this year, which would increase the fund balance in the capital outlay fund, but our carryover number might be increased. It would be paid next year. And then the new items for next year are in the bottom box there, what they call proposed future capital projects. I mentioned the pothole machinery previously. The state grant, $1,506,446,000. That would go toward, is directed right now to go toward street resurfacing. And then finally, Metro Drug Fund, they're self-funded, but they do have $57,000 worth of capital. So any questions
I
about
have one
capital?
very quickly, I'm sorry, did I talk
Go
over somebody?
ahead.
Back to the city court appropriation, will that complete the building?
I might need some help from, it's my understanding that it would. The last
Let me just-
report I got was that, you know, there was a budget was approved in FY '20 to complete that project. And it's
What-
my understanding that we're still on target with that budget.
I don't think there's any more change orders
Right.
for that that'll complete it with the.
Okay.
with
Just
the-
Councilman Brooks, just some of the work won't be completed and paid for
Okay,
until next year.
okay, and do we know when it's scheduled to open? It's hard to say.
Yeah.
I'm sorry? Mid-July? Who said that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Oh, well-
okay, thank you.
That corner behind the pillar.
Of next year.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
with respect to community development, we got a nugget that the federal government gave us because it was down to 70,000 something. And I think it's being administrated through United Way, right? Could you briefly go over there?
Yeah, they gave $300 and some odd $1,000 CDBG funds, and so that, Jackson Housing Authority, I think they came last week, one day, and proposed that's gonna be help with rental assistance, utility assistance, for those that are facing utility cutoff and evictions.
And it's through United Way.
United Way and Jackson Housing Authority and Southwest HRA are partnering to do that.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, to piggyback on Councilman Brooks's question, do we have budgeted the FF&E furniture and everything to get city court up and running at present?
Yes, the furniture was, some was, half of it was delivered last week or this week.
Okay.
Okay, we're wrapping up the ordinance itself here very quickly. The last two funds, landfill, community redevelopment, really no comments on those. There is a section 2 on page 5 of the ordinance where the state asked us to list our estimated fund balances at June 30th of 2020, right? And here they are. The purpose for that is in some of our funds, the capital outlay is a good one. The general fund is another one. We will be spending some of these estimated ending fund balance next year. So they like for us to lay that out there. Page 6, in the ordinance, we've already talked about these numbers. This is the debt service and capital outlay detail, so I'll move on from that. Page 7 is the page that had the tax rate. We've commented on that already.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Section 6, this was a section that we discussed early on in the Budget Committee meetings in the last calendar year.
This is also approved by council for that, and we have to amend it every year to put it into the budget ordinance.
That's right, yeah. So I don't think this was included in previous operational budget ordinances. That's why I'm bringing this up. Can we define what one appropriation within the same fund? So that's moving anything between line items
Yes.
with, that's not at the high level of general fund to,
No, that's within the fund.
It's within the fund, so any money that is transferred between funds, has to come to
has to come
council.
through.
No matter if it's $1
No
or
matter what,
100,000, has to come
Right.
through.
So-
and any increase or decrease in the total has to come to council.
So would appropriation be between departments within general government? Or would appropriation be defined as departments between general government and public safety?
My understanding, it's within the fund,
Within the fund?
Right.
So anything over 10,000?
that's right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so,
You okay, man?
I think I can stop there, and I'll be happy to come back and address any questions you may have.
through all that now. Any questions for Bobby?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Arnold, in the appropriations of the general fund, park and recreation facilities, there is a significant increase from 20 to 21, page 2. And forgive me if I missed it, but I just wanted to clarify what the increase is in regard to that park and rec
Yeah,
facilities.
that's primarily the Sportsplex.
Okay, yeah, that's consolidating in a sense. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Arnold, on the, just the overall in the general fund, can you give us an idea of like the, I guess there's the mayor proposal section that is in some categories and some's not. Can you give us an overview of how that
Yeah,
played in the
that's,
budgeting process?
I know that's been a little bit confusing for the council as well as for some of the directors. As we've shared all along, the budget has very much been a work in progress, right? We've worked on it daily. At some point, Mayor Conger made some recommended changes in the departmental budgets, that line item budgets that had been submitted by the directors. As we were trying to aggregate, and it was recommendations in total, with the directors having the opportunity to determine which line item to make those adjustments in, right? So as we were tracking the budget step by step and kind of aggregating things in total, as a placekeeper until we got that information to the director so that they could turn it around and get it back to us, we put it on that one line item. And it just so happened that the timing that we needed to distribute the detailed line item budgets to you all came at such a time that we had yet to complete determining from the directors exactly which accounts to make those changes to. Does that help?
I think so. So if we're seeing a positive or negative number in a particular department,
Right. A negative
that-
number, a negative number would be a decrease to the total. So if you look at that department's total expense budget, they would have to find changes in those accounts.
like that department came back higher than what, I guess, the mayor's office was proposing. Is that,
The original proposals came out from departments, and so what my office did, went through and did some cuts. And then the reason you see adjustments of positive in some areas is because after the cuts were made, then there was an adjustment for the furloughed employees, and so it reduced it further than the cuts that were proposed. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Clear as mud. Yeah.
I guess I know it's been a little confusing, I regret that, but it was just kind of a work in progress kind of issue. The bottom line is, when you look at, a department's total for FY '21, whether their department was one that was asked to reduce their expenses or whether additional expenses were allocated to that department, those changes are in that total. It just needs to be allocated to the specific account above.
okay.
Okay.
And then on the furloughed employees piece that you sent out to us, where it was, I guess part of that was realized in FY '20, part of it's realized in '21. Is it an even split? Because I think those numbers were.
Well, yeah, I think the reason it's that way is, help me, Mayor, I think there are eight pay periods, is that right?
Is there 8 on one and 8 on?
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
there's an equal number of pay periods remaining in this fiscal year from when it was implemented.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think
to-
that's
and
correct.
next year, when it ends, there was an equal number of pay periods in both years.
Yeah.
So the numbers were,
It just so happens to work out. I like to say I planned it
Those
that
numbers are
way.
already,
but yeah.
they're in the salary line items of
They-
each department, wherever
they-
they may land.
They are.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
we expect the furlough workers back.
We're assessing that now, and our plan is, they have a callback date of the 24th of August. Yeah, that's their callback date.
For each employee that was furloughed.
Well, yes, for the full-time employees. Now, part-time, some of them are seasonal, and so if some of them, like our Sportsplex employees, were called back, the seasonal ones called back early because we have tournaments going on. Like our camp counselors, we're not having summer camp, so
Right.
obviously they won't be called back till next year.
Back to the transfer of the Sportsplex into Parks and Rec, and maybe this is a question for the department head black when he comes up. Is
I
it?
don't think so.
You don't think so? Well, I'm gonna still ask my question. But it's more than just a paper transfer, correct? I would think that logistically, it would have an effect to the day-to-day operations of Parks and Rec.
No, no.
It will not? Okay, explain why not then.
It's a paper transfer.
Oh, it's a paper transfer. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Tony won't be out there taking tickets at the Sportsplex, so.
Not yet.
Any more questions for Bobby? All right, council, you have a schedule of the department heads that'll come up, and so we'll start with that. And if you have any questions for them, we can go at that time. So we'll start with Office of the Mayor. Yeah.
Good morning.
Morning.
Honored to be first.
So you'll find those, if you haven't found them in detail, they're the blue tab, detailed expense by fund. And so we'll go in that order as well. Any questions for Mr. Reed?
Looking at salaries for the mayor's office, looks like I understand there were some issues based off of having some employees that were part-time as the administration rolled over. Originally, there was a budget of $315,000. For this previous year, we're at $380,000 estimated to finish, with an additional $60,000 for FY21. Can you explain what those additional salaries are for?
The additional salaries, let me grab my book because I have my employees on file. The additional salaries, as we came in, we've added a couple people. We've added communications and a special projects. We also transferred in another employee from the engineering department that was handling kind of other functions from within the engineering department. We thought it was best, but I think that was budgeted.
That was, the money was transferred, but part of that year was paid in engineering, and when she transferred, it came over to the mayor's office. And we had, our performance management started 2 weeks after the fiscal year started. Communications director started a month and a half after the fiscal year started. And then right now, we've had 2 employees on furlough in our office, so that's been reflective of that as well. And so we have 3 employees, I'm sorry, that were furloughed in the office. So that's why the budget number is lower than what's projected for next year. And then plus also they're full-time employees as opposed to working with multiple part-time employees.
And probably, Mr. Chairman, correct me if I'm wrong, you would see a reduction in other areas with engineering with that particular staff person.
I believe so.
With those increases in salaries, are those positions open positions for FY21, or have those already been hired?
One will be hired once the hiring freeze and furlough is over. We have a temporary person in there now that was a police department employee and was on furlough, so we brought them back just to help us answer the phone calls. And so that person will be hired in August 24th-ish.
Yeah, so one vacant position.
Yeah.
And is that the communication relations specialist?
No, that is Gail Gilbert, who is working in the office now. She was doing the community relations. The communications is Kenny.
Right.
And then community relations is Gail Gilbert.
Yeah,
who is working-
administrative specialist or office manager is the one that's vacant.
Okay. FYI, you have a duplicated employee number between the office of the mayor and the city council. You may want to look into that.
Okay, I certainly will. I'll go look at that and I'll get you something today, make sure that that's right.
questions for mayor's office? Not, while we got Mr. Reed up here, we'll go to city council.
I guess the only other question, I guess, given the current climate of things and looking at a deficit going in, do you guys feel like you've made every cut that you can, or are there other?
I don't think I'll ever be able to sit here and say I've made every cut, but I think we've made a good first pass at it.
So we feel comfortable with the 30% increase in the budget for the mayor's office?
I feel comfortable with what we have here, yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, with respect to the city council office, and I don't know how the pandemic is gonna affect us with, respect to travel and training. This year, as you well know, we just did 7,900 was we didn't spend very much at all on travel and training. We
I know there was
proposed 10,000.
one trip that was canceled.
Yes.
Last year we had.
In the
was gonna be
spring.
Two gonna be canceled, most likely.
Did you take your spring trip?
No, sir, it was canceled.
Okay. We didn't do anything, so,
There's been no, up until past few weeks, there's been no departments that have traveled outside of West Tennessee
Right.
since March 16th.
okay, so we didn't do any travel and training with respect to city council, is that correct?
Not since March 16th, no, sir.
Okay. And COLA, I don't see no cost of living adjustment, but I'll leave that alone.
Well, I was asking for your salary to provide COLA for
For
everybody.
everybody else, we will split it.
And if it's feasible, may I ask Molly, with respect to office and supplies, is there anything that she needs?
I don't know if she's
You mean
here.
Sandy, I'll call her everything.
She needs some more paper, that's what she needs. Copying everything on front and back.
Deficit spending.
Alex, was
Yes,
anything
sir.
added to travel for the council?
I'm sorry?
Travel for the council?
Yes, last year it was budgeted, I think 7,500, I don't remember what the number was, but
65.
6,500, and I did.
7,500, excuse me, I'm sorry to correct you.
7,500. And so I did, ask that it be raised to 10,000.
Thank you.
With respect to the, looking through the salary and benefit portion of the city council, it appears that we have 3 councilmen being paid $100 extra a month. We need to look at that.
Yes, sir.
Also, it appears that we have 2 council members, and I wasn't aware that we get gym memberships.
I'm not either, but I'll find out today.
Okay.
I'll find out today. And I don't know if but one thought I just had, I don't know if that's beer board
Beer board.
money too.
It is beer.
That would be beer board money?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
accounted for beer board.
I don't know what it is,
Okay,
but I know
so,
there's.
so I was just making
Yeah, that just
clarification. So
dawned
that
on
is a
me.
paid position.
As they meet, it's
Right.
paid, and so you have to budget them just to assuming that they're gonna meet twice a
Meet
month. Yeah.
Twice a month,
Yeah.
okay. If you could check on the gym memberships.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I think if that's correct, it's like $6 for city employees, is my understanding. That a council member can join to live for around $6 a month. I don't think that's tied.
The other cost is covered by the city, so.
Right, that was my understanding as well.
I'll find out for sure.
Okay.
So the beer board is the only paid
That's
Yeah.
the only
board
paid board.
for the city, that's interesting.
Everybody's putting in resumes now.
Well, it's once a month, unless and there's a special call meeting, so it's $50.
Yeah, we just account for, we don't wanna say, once a month, and then there's 2 months, and then we go over on the salary, so we have to account for possibility of more than one a month.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, and if I may, so we have a meeting for the beer board before every general council meeting. And I'd say about half the time, pre-COVID, we would have a special call for somebody who needed to get a permit in before the next general city council meeting. So about 1.5 meetings per month, I would say we've averaged there.
Well, I served on 15 years, things have surely changed, I'm telling you the truth. Okay.
You got paid then?
All right, any more questions for, Mr. Reed for council and mayor's office?
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we got Municipal Court.
I just have a recommendation that he would check with our secretary to see if there's any other things that we need.
More paper.
Mr. Chairman.
Less paper. You wanna shrink the font size down and get it on 2 in front and 2 in the back? Councilmember Wallace likes the small font size, so that's why we go there.
Good morning, gentlemen, ladies.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are y'all?
Council have any questions for Mr. Hubbard?
That was easy.
Did you have any furloughed employees?
Yes,
How many?
one.
Mr. Hubbard, excuse me while I get your stuff up here. Can you just explain, for us that are new on the council, kind of the increase in your budget, and then also as kind of a follow-up to that, the difference between the revenue that the city court brings in versus the expenses that we spend on that?
City court, your first question was,
In regards to the increase in
the
the
only
budget?
increase that we probably have is the building. I don't think we have any, I mean, our budget is pretty tight. We're,
Okay, I'm
Looks
seeing,
like there's an 8% increase.
yeah, I'm seeing, we go from 912,000 to almost $1 million.
the only thing I could think of is salaries, which is beyond my control, the district attorney, the public defender, and other things. Those are not within my parameter of control.
Okay. Yeah, I think what we're seeing a significant increase in is overtime salaries.
The only problem we have is that when we're short-staffed and court runs over, I have no choice but to pay them.
Okay. As well as copier and duplication fees. You know,
What-
excuse me, if we look back, it looks like we've had $2,000 spent in 2019. We budgeted $1,000 last year. We spent $2,700 this year, and we're up to $5,500.
We ordered a new copier for the new
Okay.
building. That's probably what that increase is.
So in terms of your revenue, we're looking at a revenue projection of $252,000, with the cost to run a municipal court at $1 million. So that's $750,000 to the taxpayers of Jackson. Can you walk us through, for the uninitiated here, what's the purpose of a city court versus a general sessions court?
The city court was originally, from my understanding, established to not be such a burden on the citizens of a community because the higher courts cost more money and they're more serious. So they came up with a municipal court, Jackson City Court, to try and keep things down for the citizens of the community rather than, the expenses at general sessions and circuit are much higher. Their fines are higher, their costs are higher, their sentences are longer. So it's really a misdemeanor court to try to actually help the higher court by diverting some of the crimes to the local municipality.
Thank you.
Relative to the expenses, can you discuss the difficulty of collecting fines in city court?
It's always been a headache trying to collect fines from people who don't have it. That's one of the problems we run into. When you run a court that basically, most of the people that we run into, of course, if you're stealing, you don't have money. If you're doing certain crimes, you don't have money. So it's kind of hard to get money from those people and they move. And then some of them actually are sentenced to prison later on. I mean, you don't just steal. Some people just don't steal and walk away. They keep going and going and going. And those fees and fines are added to our log, and these people are in the penitentiary. And it just, that's the nature of this game.
Thank you.
Yeah, and to Councilman Brooks' point a bit, I believe we voted and hired a new collection service
Yes, sir.
on behalf of City Court. How have they performed on your
Well,
behalf?
the individual who was in charge of that program was unnecessarily indicted by the district attorney's office, and they've been suspended without pay, so kind of that happens when you have another court trying to dictate what this court does. This is kind of what happens. This came from circuit court down to try, I guess, to disrupt our program, and we went along with it.
Thank you.
And relative to that, and I'll be delicate with that.
Oh, don't be delicate. I want it out. Don't be delicate.
Do you have enough personnel?
At this point, I have one lady who's, she's pregnant. She's been sick ever since then, but she's back this week. And it's like the lady that was suspended was kind of the one that kind of ran the office, so there's going to be some bumps and bruises along the way.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. So to Councilman McKelvey's question, refresh my memory, we have somebody that does collections within municipal court.
This is a new
And the
program
individual
that we were trying to get off the ground to get it started, and right when we get it started, this kind of happens.
And then the city itself hired.
Yeah, we have a third-party collection.
third-party
Yeah, and that
collections.
was-
I thought that was
yeah,
what
that
Councilman
was-
was referring
yes.
to. How is that
sorry.
performed? The third-party collection?
Well, we were just getting off the ground until this happened, so the person who was in charge of that,
She was in charge of the third-party collection
yes,
service?
she was the one working with the collection agency, yes.
Okay. But there's another employee that does collections within,
We do have our own collections court, yes, we have a fines court that we do every Tuesday. We try to keep track of them, so we have a court every Tuesday at 3 p.m. to, if they can't pay, to come in and explain to the judge why they can't pay. And the thing is, you can't run a debtor's court. If they say, I don't have a job, what else can you do? You just can't lock them up.
Any other questions?
I think in the terms that we're looking at with a $4.2 million deficit, a draw on fund balance of that significance potentially, we really have to look at some of these things that the citizens of Jackson pay for in excess of $750,000. If there are other services out there that can meet the same need, I think we need to, the council needs to look at those, or if there's more efficient ways to do things. As we went out and built a city court, we had the opportunity to pair with the county to have a building within their new facility. So I think we really need, as we move forward, look at how we best utilize our money and our operations to not run deficits in areas that, in my personal opinion, should be kind of a net zero on the city.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hubbard.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Next, we have Recovery Court. Good morning. Any questions on Recovery Court?
Could you just kind of give us an overview of the revenues that does Recovery Court bring in any revenues?
So Recovery Court, we are a state-funded program through the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. So we receive $70,000 every year. We were recertified in 2018 for another 4 years, so we'll have that coming up again in 2021. And so the revenue that we would bring in, we do have a participant weekly fee that they pay. They pay $5 a week once they get a job in our program, but other than that, we do not bring in any revenue.
Okay.
Our salaries are paid by the general fund, but yes, we're a state-funded program.
So this is independent. Do you get referrals from municipal court or the
We do. So
general
all-
sessions?
All of our participants are referred through city court under the leadership of Judge Anderson, and he is the one that started this program here in 2002. And so, yes, all of our participants, instead of serving a year in jail if they have charges and a drug and alcohol problem, They can opt into our program if they're eligible to receive treatment through our program, and it's a 5-phase program that we have. It's usually about a year and a half long, and they'll do community service work, find a job, get their GED, go to treatment classes, have supervision with the judge every Friday, and so it's a judicially supervised treatment program out of city court.
Does your program subsidize the cost of treatment for these clients?
So we use our grant funding to pay for those treatment services, and we contract with a company here in Jackson called Hope Restored Counseling, and they provide counseling and treatment groups and family groups for our clients each week.
Is it true that many of your clients couldn't participate in the program and couldn't get treatment if it weren't for this subsidization?
Some of them could, like they could be referred to inpatient treatment or other services, but through the city court program, these are clients that are looking at a year in jail. And so they actually have charges that would warrant that they serve some jail time. So instead of doing that and to release the burden on the criminal justice system, our program was created to help them actually, treat the underlying problem of addiction instead of just serving a year in jail and getting out and doing the same thing, so.
And you say they pay $5?
They do. So in phase 3, 4, and 5, once they've had time to stabilize and get a job, they're required to pay a $5 weekly fee.
And I hope surely the council in considering making them pay more so that your department can start generating revenue. But thank you for what you do.
Yes,
We
thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
how are you?
Hey, good.
We have worked together for a long number of years. You have invited me to speak at the recovery graduation program, you and Judge Anderson, and you all are doing a magnificent job.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
All right, any other questions? Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Thank y'all.
All right, up next is revenue and finance.
I guess I would just, as you're reviewing the numbers, to see if you have any questions for me. It's been a year of transition between revenue and finance and the accounting department. I'd encourage you to maybe look at both cost centers at the same time. There's been some personnel that used to be in accounting, moved to revenue, and there's been quite a bit of transition this year with staff. I might also point out, in all fairness, in FY '20, in revenue and finance, the auditing services, I think that estimate is one we met, that's high. You pay your audit fee once a year, and it looks like that got annualized to be a higher number than it's gonna end up being for this year. Kind of making, it looked like a decrease next year when it's probably
Okay.
really not a decrease.
You're
We
saying
have.
FY '20 was higher than?
Yeah, you
Okay.
pay,
That's
that
okay.
estimate for FY '20 is high. We took what we paid and we annualized it. It's-
So we feel good about the 79,400?
Yeah, we do.
that
That's,
can
that's
accomplish?
contracted.
Okay.
Right, that's contracted. And, as you know, there's been transition in personnel in both of these offices over the course of this year. And, I think looking ahead to next year in terms of employee count, we have one vacant position that's in this budget. And I think that's targeted for the internal audit.
And that would be, so we have a city recorder salary and the director of finance salary. And within those, we would use the balance of that.
Yeah, not the full balance,
Yeah, not the full balance, but a portion of the balance for the internal auditor.
yes.
That's the plan.
Where are we at on that hiring process?
Interviewing.
Okay.
While I'm up here, I just want, if it's okay, I want to take a minute to recognize the staff in the revenue office and the accounting department, because it's definitely been a year a year of transition in both of those offices, and the frontline employees have really done a very good job. It's kind of like we've got a new team in the revenue office, and accounting people have been here, have longer tenure, but I want to compliment them all for their support, and it's definitely been a year of transition, so they deserve some recognition.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Arnold, considering the hurdles that we have over the coming years in terms of our debt service and continuing to grow, and we're seeing a decline presently in revenues, do you feel like you have the appropriate staffing moving forward to be able to tackle these the coming issues? that
We're
we have?
evaluating that and working on that. I would say yes. At the same time, I would also say one of our biggest challenges today and moving forward is our technology platform. That's probably the bigger concern moving forward and higher priority.
And to address that from what Mr. Arnold said, we have establishing a committee to start at the beginning of next fiscal year in early July to assess our technology platform for accounting and for data management. And so that'll help us plan for a new integration in FY '22. So they'll be coming back with some proposals on what we can do moving forward and how we can make that transition.
That'd be a pretty sizable investment on it.
Yeah, what we're working with now is an AS400 model, so,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Real quick, Mayor, quick question. On the drug court, it is funded up under city court, ain't it? Would that be correct?
the recovery court, it works with,
Yeah.
it's in its own,
Conjunction, yeah.
in
Conjunction.
conjunction with, yeah.
Okay.
All right, so you got accounting, revenue, purchasing.
Okay, any questions?
Ms. White, it looks like you've come in under your budget this year and are projecting a decrease in your budget for next year. Kind of cursory note, what are some goals and objectives for the purchasing department as we enter into the next year?
To definitely get more bidders on all of our projects. Councilman Pretty is going to work on a committee with me, as well as some of the other council people who have been on committees, and we're going to put our heads together, see if there's any way
We
that.
can remove your mask.
Yeah, go ahead.
See-
Yeah.
Okay, you can hear me now. All right. See if there's any way we can get more bidders, and that's my number one goal. To learn the new website is definitely the second one. I think that's going to help out a lot. I talked with the IT director yesterday. He's going to post our bid openings, our public notices on the website, just like they're being done now.
Okay.
Those are two very, very worthy goals, I think.
Is there not a company that currently is in operation that assists municipal governments in doing bids as far as purchasing fire trucks, police cars, and things of that nature? I think there is, and I think it's utilized by many, many cities across the state of Tennessee, and probably across the country, that kind of helps on the bidding process. And I may not have all the information that I need to know about it, and I'm not sure if that is something that's feasible for this city, possibly to be able to find the vehicles that we need and maybe at a cheaper rate.
Yeah, Councilman.
We do
Go
that.
ahead. Go ahead.
We do that. Are you talking about state contract?
Say again?
State contract pricing?
Could be it. I'm not exactly sure the exact name of it.
That
Something-
is wonderful. State contract pricing is wonderful. And what the state of Tennessee does every year is they bid on everything that municipalities use. I'm talking everything. Jails purchase from them, municipalities, everybody. If what we want fits what they have, we definitely file state contract. They've already bid it out. They've gone through all the red tape. We don't have to do that, and it's wonderful. There are also interlocal agreements that we purchase from too, and that's great.
Okay, thank you.
Susan, I would hope too, and I know that you, and we've had discussions, that we can make a concerted effort to include minority and women businesses, and create opportunities for those groups to do more business with the city.
Yes, and we have that in our bid packages, and purchasing over the years has participated in workshops that the Chamber of Commerce has had. We have roundtable discussions. We talk to women, minorities, and tell them how to get on our bid list. And so we've done all that. We've even gone to Memphis and participated in those as well. I had a call yesterday from a lady who is working as a consultant with some minorities and women, who asked me how to get on the bid list for the city of Jackson, and I told her all of the 12 areas where we advertise. Told her just to call me directly or email me, and to go to our website, and if they see anything on our website that they would like to receive an invitation to, just call me. We've got it ready and we can send it to them.
Okay, that's great. I just want us to continue the good work.
We are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To follow up on Councilman Brooks's point, I think it would be beneficial for the purchasing department to field some suggestions from our minority and women communities, as well as other contractors that we involve with, to make sure that we've got the processes user-friendly for those who want to bid on our projects.
We have, and that's one reason why I don't want to accept bids that are emailed, because a lot of them don't have computers. And a lot of them can just pick up that information, bring their bid package to me instead of it coming over the computer, because I don't want to eliminate anyone. We have some that can't read, and they come up and I explain how to do things. I show them where to sign on the line, and they turn it into me right there. There are some that I have had that have given me their contact, and this is a lot, everybody, you know, not just the minorities or women or anything like that. They give me their phone number and their email address, how to get in touch with them. I send them information. I try calling them at that number, only to find out that they have an office manager who handles everything, and most of the time they don't check their email or their phone numbers, that kind of thing. But yes, and I've also been in contact with the accountant. I believe that's his title. He's with African American Chamber of Commerce. His name is Don. Do you know his last name? And he is revving up a program too to get started.
Mr. Clarence Boone, who you need to see now. Mr. Clarence Boone.
Okay.
Right, he's.
I've talked, yes, and I've
I know,
talked
but
to him
Mr.
twice.
Clarence Boone is who she needs to see.
We,
You'd be surprised.
I think so too.
If I could just encourage you to keep as much as we can local, with our local vendors.
we do, and if they will bid with us, the local firms, that is super. A lot of times when I open bids, it does surprise me that our local vendors are not as, they don't have the better price. And it just surprises me that they're here, they've got all their equipment, they can mobilize and demobilize a lot less expensively than somebody in Memphis or Nashville, but sometimes that's just not the case. And I've joked with them sometimes and asked if they're trying to retire off one job and they need to get their prices down, but a lot of times they just needed to learn how to bid. And, of course, you all know that low bid is not the best bid. So we look at all that too. But yes, I agree with you. Buying local is very important.
I believe you did, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
No, you can go ahead, Councilman. I've asked a question.
I was curious on, could you help us understand the process, just a broad overview of when you engage with department heads and getting their expertise versus when you are leading the bid proposal.
Let me start from the beginning, and this, I think this is an eye-opener for a lot of the new ones, and it may be a refresher course for the ones who have been on the council for a while. But during the budget process, all the department heads meet with Mr. Arnold. They say what they want, what kind of truck, what the projects are, that sort of thing. They work all that out. When all of it's worked out, you approve everything, then I get a list of everything that they asked to purchase. And from that list, that's when I go to state contract, interlocal agreements. We take quotes, or we send out bids or proposals. If I have a question about something that I don't understand, I'll ask that department head, what is this for? How are you going to use this sort of thing. But by the time it gets to me, they already have gone through the process and have talked to all of you, and everything's approved. So for instance, if someone comes in and says they need a 1.5-ton truck, I don't go back to them and say, are you sure you need one that size? Because they've already gone through all that with accounting. You've approved it. It's already set in stone. My job is to go ahead and buy whatever they needed and was approved at the best price.
Okay. And Mayor, we're continuing this year to have a council member rotate on each committee, is that correct? Yes. Okay.
Do you want that on each bid, or do you want that on each major project that we have?
We might can figure that out in the committee on what's best. So I mean, I don't think when we're ordering paper, we need to have that, but I do think there probably needs to be some parameters that we look at on when we have certain people involved, definitely, to be able to
It's a
improve.
great conversation for the committee that you all are gonna be on discussing the process for planning.
Right, and we've got that. We've had several members on these committees so far.
All right, any questions about the budget for Ms. White? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we have IT.
Morning, Mayor and Council.
Good morning. Any questions for Mr. Taylor?
Mr. Taylor, it looks like you going to have a reduction in your budget this year. Do you have everything that you need to keep our information secure and safe and accessible?
Yes, sir. I think we do. We have one furloughed employee, but we are working within the parameters we're given to make sure that we try and keep things that are essential going, especially when it comes to security and things of that nature. But I do feel like we can work within those parameters.
Do you anticipate any major purchases over the next, year or so relative to information technology and having all of the tools that you need to do your job?
I think one of the big ones the mayor's already touched on, and Bobby, would have to do with an overhaul of the financial software, the HR software. There's a lot of duplication of effort there that I think we can eliminate, a lot of inefficiency. So that's probably going to be one of the biggest projects we'll have over the next couple of years.
Okay, thanks, Brian.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make a comment, because I'm a big believer in this is where we can save some money by spending some money. So I believe Mayor Congress said that you're looking at that for the year of 2022?
Yes.
To implement that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
As you know, it's not something we want to rush into, so they're going to do a study and be prepared for it.
Thank you.
In terms of your GIS contractual, I see that we don't have anything budgeted this year for that. Has that moved to another department? I know as we get onto the website, based off some previous conversations, that it was being presented as if there would be GIS capability and increased GIS mapping on our website. Could you speak to that?
Sure. The GIS that was budgeted in prior years, I had requested it be moved to planning department simply because I know the mayor wanted to better reflect where each cost was coming from, and there who does the mapping and the current contract with GeoJob and the Esri. So we will still continue the Esri services. It'll just be reflected under a different department, I believe.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Mr. Taylor, in terms of the website on the, I guess, the ongoing costs, is that in the services line item, or is it the contract, let's see,
It would, I think it'll be reflected under service agreements.
service agreements, okay.
Yes, and of course, that's where we reflect any ongoing annual maintenance, whether it be for the financial software, websites, antivirus, any of those items.
Gotcha, okay.
So no major overhauls of any systems that we have that are outdated at present?
No, not for this coming year. Obviously, with the capital restrictions we have, we're very focused on maintaining what we have. Of course, the biggest major overhaul we'll have is the website launch, which is July 1. And we hope that'll help streamline some things, especially with the citizen request portal, in regards to utilizing the personnel we have more efficiently.
And I don't know if this is your department, the city council minutes, videos, agendas, packets, since the turn of the calendar year, those have been missing from the website. I just want to make sure that we get that up for the public so that we're as transparent and communicative as possible.
Absolutely. We will have those up on the new site, and I've been working with Kenneth, who's making sure that the videos are available via YouTube as well. And we've already set up links so that you can go and watch the council meetings by clicking off of the packets on the new site.
Okay.
Have we done any analysis of overhauling or updating the email system that everyone uses, or?
That's a great question.
I feel like that was a plant from Mayor Conger.
It wasn't, but.
We have looked at it. The system we inherited is Micro Focus. It runs on Linux. It obviously is, we have some amount of security through obscurity, as we call it. There is some cost factors with that, and that's something I can definitely look at. Obviously, the big player is Exchange. It's the most widely used, and in some cases, the most widely targeted. So, it's something we definitely look at and see if there's a cost benefit for doing something like that.
Is that something?
It's a great question, Councilman.
Yeah, is that something we can look at quickly? Because every year that goes by, my brain bleeds a little bit more from trying to use this email.
Sure, we can look at that quickly.
We appreciate you.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, sir. Next up, HR. Any questions for Ms. Henning?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I told you, Ms. Henning, I wasn't gonna let him ask you any questions.
I don't have any questions, but just one, how many are furloughed?
Sir,
How many are furloughed employees?
approximately 58 regular full-time. We have called back some of the part-time to work at the Sportsplex.
Okay.
So we're calling them back. We called some back on the 1st, the 7th, 14th. So I'm not really sure of the 133
I think we've called
that are back.
17 part-time back and.
We've got more on the list.
Yeah.
So it may be about 30 total.
Is that 17 part-time out of 133?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Because we're dealing with them in our office. And,
Sir, you all are doing a wonderful job.
Thank
You very much for assisting our employees with
Thank you.
unemployment. Thank you.
Ms. Henning,
Yes, sir.
I noticed in some of the different categories with the automobile allowances, they're not projected or listed for this coming budget. Can you speak to that on why we're seeing some of those not continue in the budget?
All of them are not continued.
All of them are not?
Right. That was an effort to reduce costs.
Okay.
There'll be, if there's any travel required by those that had an automobile allowance, they'll turn in their mileage.
Okay.
That's across the board,
Yes.
Mayor.
Thank
How
you.
many were furloughed in your individual department, Ms. Henning?
Sir,
How many were furloughed in your department?
my specific department? None.
None, okay.
We had to have all of them for the furloughs.
Yes, sir.
You got furloughs. That's not funny.
Gotta
Only
laugh to keep from
4 of us
crying.
there
Thank you, Ms.
to
Henning.
start with. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Risk management?
Good.
Morning.
Good morning.
That
We have questions for Stacy on risk management.
It just looks like you have a nominal increase in some salaries and benefits.
Yes. We did have a new employee come in August. So I think the benefit change there is the previous employee didn't have our insurance, so I think that's where that change is.
Okay. Now, was that an employee that was within the city that came over and didn't have
A
coverage?
part-time employee.
A part-time employee that moved to full-time?
Yes.
Okay,
Part-time from Westwood came.
okay.
How's she working out? She working hard?
Yes, very hard. We keep her busy.
Could you give us, again, for those of us, just a quick overview of what your department entails? What
Okay.
your job description is?
In the risk management department, we try to look out for the city, try to reduce risk any way we can, by purchasing insurance, by helping put policies and procedures in place. We also do the safety and the safety training, and we handle the on-the-job injury processes. And then also we do the employee benefits as far as insurance, so the health, the dental, the vision, life, long-term disability, those kind of things.
Okay.
OSHA?
Yes.
Okay.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next, public buildings. Saw him walking around here. Don't see him now. Devlin. Can I ask Alex your questions then?
On public buildings, is that where we're at?
Yeah, I saw Devlin a second ago, and
No, you don't.
now I don't. He's checking the public buildings.
So I'm assuming that the salary position within this department is Devlin's position.
Yeah, it's a shared salary position with Devlin. This is for City Hall, correct? So I think there's also, it's Grady's salary as
Yeah,
well.
I believe the regular salaries is the attendant.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. Yeah, Devlin's is out of building.
I see. Yes, I'm sorry. You know, I guess we had some repairs to the building that are carryover from last year.
Yes, sir.
And those are encumbered. Have we had bids put out on making those repairs?
Yes.
Yes, we did. I'm hearing from behind.
Hey, Devlin, come on up here, buddy. Devlin. Checking the building.
Doing his job.
Yeah, he's appreciate you doing your job, yeah. Good morning. They were just, looking at the public buildings, municipal buildings, so,
Devin, what we were discussing was the needed repairs for the front out here.
Yes.
Can you tell us when we see that take place?
We've awarded the contract. They have started implementing the plans to get started on it.
Okay. And that's for the repair from the leaks in the
In the
downspouts?
front lobby, yes.
Okay.
any additional questions? Perfect timing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Farmers Market.
This is my sister.
Good
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, everybody.
Good morning.
Yeah, y'all have questions? 'Cause I do.
Maybe just tell us how the farmer's market is growing and how we see that progressing.
Okay, over the past 5 years, the farmer's market has grown exponentially. I think all of you have been there, you support it, you come for events there. We really have outgrown ourselves, but we're making do and we're making space, and being really clever in how we make use of the market. And someday I'm gonna beg Jimmy Exum for the Jackson Records building, because I know he's in here. I don't know how to build a second story. You know, I look at places like New York and some places in Nashville, and they've been able to add second stories and use airspace. So we're trying to think creatively of how to do that ourselves. But in the meantime, we use street space, and we use Anderson Park, and we use the AMP space. It's very important. So I guess I would talk about that. And before we talk about the budget, I see that Mayor Conger has made some proposals. We've corresponded back and forth a little bit. I've just tried to ask him how that was derived. And so we work very closely together. I keep him in the loop and keep him informed on everything that happens at that market. So I think we'll be able to work through some of this. But very significantly, what has happened, and Mayor Conger can support this, since March with the pandemic, the market has not closed. I want you to know that. It has become even more vital. We are seeing more EBT users at the market, and that means food stamps. People are coming in there with blank stares. How do I do this? So we take them around just like we're helping them shop. Everyone that's in the market, those farmers that wear a red apron, sell EBT. So we make it, and I know y'all know this about me personally, and for the good of the city, there will be no variation in socioeconomic levels, and there will be no variation in cultural disparity, so that we have unity. This market, for everyone who comes to Jackson, it is one of, if not the most culturally diverse place in our city. It is kind, it is welcoming, and everyone who comes there will find food that they need on their table. In the city of Jackson, there should not be one hungry person, not one hungry person. There is food available, and we help them every day find food for their family. We have mothers who come in there with 10 children. They take the bus to get there. So the beautiful part of the location of the West Tennessee Farmers Market is that it is in downtown Jackson, and they can get there by bus. Their transportation is not an issue.
So Timmy, there's no land available where you could expand the market at this point in time?
Yes,
Around that
there
area?
is. There's one spot of land, and Mayor Conger knows I watch it every week and figure
Like a
out
hawk, I'm sure.
how am I going to get that?
Yep.
And it is, the spot of land next to the blacksmith. But in the meantime, the projects that are on here, I guess I would say let's just cruise through this budget. I always know we can make improvements. I hope I'm not sure how we've derived a $40,000 cut for the farmer's market, but maybe it's just some misinformation that could be clarified. Right now, Mayor Conger and I are just watching, we need to deconstruct the awnings that are in Anderson Park. We have a very fair price for that. I'm hoping tomorrow Mayor Conger says, okay, let's move. I'm hoping he says it right now.
He's not going to.
I know, but.
Is that in the repair and maintenance increase you're speaking of?
It would come under repair and maintenance. So it's about $6,500. Those 3 awnings that sit in Anderson Park serve no function. The people who were on that founding committee have helped me know it served no function. But the beautiful part is we've got an estimate to take those down, repurpose them. The architecture of those awnings is the same as what's out at the Sportsplex. It has no shade.
Does that fall under, I may be a little confused,
No.
does that part, Anderson Park, fall under the farmer's market?
Yes.
Or under Park
Yes.
Center? Okay.
Yes.
So it all rolls up
The other
under
part
your
of
budget.
this that you don't see, at the farmer's market, there are 8 buildings. There's also ample open space that the city is responsible for. So Anderson Park is part of that, the AMP is part of that, all the way to this side of the dog park is part of the farmer's market.
Okay.
The farm stand is part of the farmer's market. The grill is part of the farmer's market. The 2 sheds are part of the farmer's market, and the grill is rented right now. So in the midst of all this pandemic, we've got a lady named Sheila Aaron who has a bake shop and catering, and she's running all kinds of business out of there. But those kinds of projects, they're not reflected on here for this year because we're just waiting. But the issue for the farmers, 30-plus years of farmers market, the issue for the farmers who come, I'm going to read you the counties who come to Jackson, Tennessee. They leave their homes at 2 o'clock in the morning. They milk their cows. They load the corn. They haul peas, squash, greens to come to Jackson, Tennessee. I'm going to, I guess, read this to you. Henry County, Henderson County, Stewart County, Hardin County, Chester County, Dyer County, Haywood County, Decatur County, Gibson County, Benton County, Weakley County, Crockett County, Carroll County, Hardeman County, Fayette County, Tipton County, and including Madison County. Every single week to the farmer's market, almost 100 vendors. Every week. The residual of that also, not only are they serving the indigent, they also add to tourism. What you don't see on this budget, and they will come and tell you. I have invited them. If you say you want 15 farmers to come and talk to you all, they'll be glad to come. When they come to Jackson, they buy fuel. Sometimes they overnight in Jackson. They go down to Jackson Walk and eat at the end of the day. They buy food from Grubbs. They go out to Walmart. They get their Walmarting done while they're here. And then they sometimes buy fast food on their way out. So they spend money every time they come here. The other project that happens, we might as well talk about both of them together, is the AMP. That space was added. It has its own line item. The truth is, the security, I'll just use that as an example. The security line item under the AMP, that covers every space of the market. One of the projects under that is that the security cameras are planned, scheduled, we're just kind of waiting to put under the big sheds. We have good security view over everywhere else. We just don't have it under the big shed yet. But the project is there to bore under Market Street, to run the wireless, be able to connect the security cameras in Shed 1, Shed 2, and the breezeway at the market. The importance of that, again, is to mitigate risk for the city. So we're spending a little bit of money for 40 years down the road to mitigate risk for the city. We have someone pass out, fall, trip, back into somebody else every week. We're dealing with about 5,000 people every week at the market. So we have the human factor, and thank goodness we do. We're thankful for it. It's an amazing place. But people come, they do business. It's their livelihood for the farmers.
Speaking of the AMP, can you elaborate on the salary? Is that a new position that?
No, that position's been there since 2017. There are 4 positions within the market. 2 are full-time, so
Or
we
is
were.
this directly under the AMP, under
Right,
the AMP?
I'm
Okay.
going to explain. It's a cumulative effort. 2 positions are full-time that fall in the market. 1 is part-time that falls in the market, and 1 is part-time that shows under the AMP. That's an assistant manager position that's seasonal because we're working 16-hour days in 100-degree weather. So like today, we have a farmer at the market. We have an event tonight. So we have 2.5 people right now that work these days in 100-degree weather. That position comes along seasonally when we have all this extra market going on and all the extra events. Only 2 events have been canceled during this pandemic. The Easter egg hunt from First United Methodist Church and the Down Syndrome Country Music Festival was canceled. Everything else was shuffled to now. So from June through December, it's on every day, every week. The beautiful part of the AMP, the events that the city hosts for free, they're not exactly free. We have sponsors, and we do have an AMP committee, Jimmy Exum, Lori Nunnery, Jerry Gay. It's a good group, but they are out seeking sponsors to host those concerts. But that's only a little small portion of what we do down at the market. So we've got, 40 other events that take place that people pay, and they do contracts. It is a very nominal amount they pay, and we can always look at going up on that, but mostly everybody wants it for free. So you can't keep giving it away for free. They've got to pay something, and we've worked with Mayor Conger to help him understand that. Sometimes we can discount depending on the number of hours they're going to use, but you can't give it away for free or it's not going to be there in 10 years. It's not going to be in the condition that it is now.
To the salary position that Councilman Priddy just brought up, it would look that was not expended in 2019 nor in 2020.
And the reason for that is we always leverage where we can. We constantly are leveraging, which is how we've made our budget work on such a shoestring. We had a summer youth worker for those 2 summers. And we utilized that person in that position, and we saved ourselves that money. But the summer youth program, are you familiar with that? Do you know about the summer youth program?
With the farmer's market?
No, for the whole city.
Is that through juvenile court?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
So that program is not enacted this year, so we're going to have to use that temporary position.
I guess the confusion maybe, and I think I'm starting to track with you, but with the salaries being in 2 different departments, I know you're over all of it and it essentially kind of rolls under the market. But you're having multiple people or I guess positions flip-flopping back and forth between the 2 departments?
No, we have a director, a manager, a building attendant, and that assistant manager is that temporary position.
Okay, so the line item under salaries for the amphitheater
Under,
is
right.
not a new position. It's
No.
work that's already being done and will continue to be done.
Right.
We're just putting it under the
We're
amphitheater this year.
bearing that right now, the 15-hour days, but as soon as all of this gets through and the hiring freeze is no more, we're going to need that person. You can't work and make good decisions and care for the public when you're tired and hot.
So that
and
will
you've
be a
worked-
new person.
Pardon?
So it will be a new person?
It'll be a person, but not a new position.
Okay.
So when you say,
And they'll hire through December,
when you say
basically.
15 and 16-hour days, you have employees that are working 15 and 16-hour
I'm
days?
one of them.
Okay,
And the part-time guy works 15-hour days. Our manager, we shuffle our schedule every week to make this work. Every single week, we shuffle. And after Saturdays, it's long. And it's hot. And we don't mind to do it for a time, but then come Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we shorten. You have to have a time to recoup.
sure. So your
But this person helps offset that.
your work, I can see that on a Saturday.
Right.
I'm
And a
having trouble
Friday.
on seeing,
We have it on Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays.
okay, what are we having on Thursdays? That's 6,
We have events. We have the Twilight Run, we have festivals. Like tonight, we have line dancing at the market
okay.
from 6 to 8:30.
But there are instances where we have to work 15 or 16. It was,
And
it's kind
generally,
of
it
taken that we're
happens in the
working 15
summer.
or 16 every day, but that's not,
No,
Okay.
we're working that in the summertime. It's
Okay.
seasonal.
sure.
Yeah, we don't do it every day, but when you do it 2 or 3 times a week, it's long days.
Sure.
And you're outside. The other people that we have that help leverage when we have these events, this is how we keep our staffing low. When we have these events, we leverage with the volunteers. So if you come and have your crawfish event at the farmer's market, we're gonna expect you to pull your end of the deal because it's your event. You're gonna help organize, you're going to help, make sure your volunteers clean up when you leave. So we have to leverage that. If we didn't have that, we'd have to have more staff.
So whenever there's an event, or
Contracted
anything
event.
happening at the AMP or the farmer's market, you and your assistant are there?
Somebody's there, one of us are there,
Okay.
absolutely. You can't have the people be there without a staff.
Okay.
It's just not a free-for-all.
Tammy, let me circle back around to something you mentioned. What does a vendor pay when they come to set up?
They pay $15 a day. It is very nominal.
Okay. If you increase that, what would be the effect of some vendors saying, "Oh, I can't afford that, you know, you've gone up on me, I've got to go somewhere else"? Initially, I think you would have that by some vendors.
Yeah, I mean, we can go up $20 a day, but we've checked across the state, it's very nominal. It's a city-supported
Understood.
place. The other thing I've checked into is can you take a percentage of what they earn that day? And you'll never figure that out because they're all running cash.
Now, I think you probably hit on something that we might be able to raise some additional revenue for you if you looked at the possibility of increasing the fee for the vendors.
Right. You can also increase the fees for the rentals.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very nominal, but you can't give it away for free.
And I don't think we should be giving anything away.
So I guess what I'm hearing you say is there's staffing issues. It seems
We
like.
don't have any staffing issues.
Right,
It's
but it seems like
working.
you're wanting more people, more funds for
We don't
staffing.
need more funds, we just need what's on here.
Okay. Have we looked into like different revenue models, like when you, not on a daily basis at the market on a Saturday, but when we rent it out to different groups or weddings, or how is that structured? Is it just a base
It's
rate?
it's a base rate plus setup fees plus, you know, depending on how long they use it for the event, and then per hour for if they're there setting up. And takedown. It's a whole unit amount. Like if they're there from 10 to 10, the amp is $450 for 4 hours. The sheds are $250 for 4 hours, so it's very nominal. The other thing you might recognize or realize if you don't understand it yet is a lot of the people who are using that are nonprofits.
Yeah.
So you don't really want to charge them $2,000, and then they're coming back to you to ask for money to
I just
fund
know-
them.
yeah, I get you. I know in the past we've had an issue with giving away the use of city facilities.
We
to
don't give it
nonprofits,
away,
but-
and I've worked with Mayor Conger on that. Please do not give it away. Because the disparity, and I've written this to him in an email, the disparity that creates is if I give it to you on your church committee, then you serve on 5 other committees in the community, and you say, well, I'll just call, and it happens all the time. I'll just call Mayor Conger, and he'll give it to us for free. And that happens all the time. And so 6 years ago, when I went over there, we worked through that process of, we can discount it. If you're only gonna use it for an hour, we can discount it. But we can't, keep giving it away for free, or it's not going to be there. The other issue, I guess, that's on here, under the publicity at the top, under the farmer's market, you know, we show right now that we're at 1,500. That's because we've just kind of reduced on what we've spent, but we need the 6,500 that's there. A lot of that publicity goes for buying those red aprons and advertising in places where indigent people are, and the people who ride the buses.
What did we do last year? Or I guess why was it not spent?
65.
on publicity?
6533 in 2019. So we
Or
don't
20,
know.
I'm sorry, this past, the current
Right
fiscal year
now,
we're in. Yeah, it looks
we're
like
all on
1,500.
hold.
Okay.
We're all on a reserve, but it's.
For the
we're-
publicity of them.
For everything. So those awnings, I've been talking with Mayor Conger since April. And I'm going to tell you what's happening. The farmers are coming in, the tomatoes, the corn, all this food. To these farmers, I don't think any of you farm. I know we all eat. We all look healthy. We all eat. Those farmers are spending thousands of dollars on their food, their seed, their product, their tractors, their harvest. So when they come to the farmer's market, they're griping every week right now. I mean, I get an earful. And I told Mr. Conger that just this last week, we just got to try to work through this quickly. We've been talking about it since April. I've been projecting and planning, and now it's here, and Anderson Park's going to be full. But you can't sit on asphalt and concrete and 100+ degree weather and have the food that you've worked for, your product, your livelihood, sit there and rot. And we've got space. They're willing to rent that space for the whole summer. But we need those awnings down. I need to be able to pull tractors and trailers in there. And they are willing to double tent for now. The other item, if you'll look on the Capitol, that unit, that air conditioning unit that we've got on there, that doesn't need to be on there for Capitol. It falls under maintenance for next year. It doesn't need to be a capital item. It falls under the maintenance, right there at that 9,000, that's where it is. It's going to come under the farmer's market. That's part of that 9,000.
In your expense, but you're referencing the capital budget. Is that,
Take it
yeah,
out
trying
of
to
the
make sure I'm
capital
tracking.
where you see 5,000.
We not on, are we on the capital yet? Are we,
No, I'm just saying that's part of this budget.
yeah, but we don't wanna confuse
Well, it's
discussing
not
the capital.
confusing. Yeah,
It's not in the
kinda
capital budget for
confusing.
2020, 2021. Any questions on
Right.
the budget that the farmer's market has?
So I guess I'm asking, are
I'm
you
asking the
going?
council, is there a question on the budget of the farmer's market?
Well, I'm asking, do I need to make a written statement of this is what you're proposing, all these
Yes,
reductions?
make a written statement, yes.
Pardon?
Yes, make a written statement.
Okay, well, I've submitted that to you, so I'm not sure.
Well, then you've already done it then. Thank you.
Well, I'll send another one.
Thank you.
I'll send another one to the
Thank you.
council.
Thank you.
I'm not sure what's going on, Mr.
Thank you.
Conger, of where this was derived.
Thank you.
I'd like an answer. How was this derived?
You're done.
I'd like an answer
You're
because we're
done.
transparent.
Damn transparent, you're done. The budget was cut, you're done, that's it. The council makes a decision, not you. You're a
I'm
department
not
head,
making the decision, I'm
and
asking for
it's done.
answers.
The budget was cut by 3%, and it's done.
This looks
You
like
have a
more
choice
than
to
3%.
You have a choice to go now, or you have a choice to go. It's
And
over
write a
with.
letter.
You write a letter.
Okay. Thank you. This is the only one that was cut like this. Right?
Are you finished? Because you're done.
I'm asking you.
You are done. I'm not answering the question, you're done.
I'm not sure where this is coming from.
Again, I said you're
Okay.
done.
Council, thank you. I'm
Thank
not
you.
sure. This is how we've been treated. I'm not sure.
You are done.
Mayor Conger, I respectfully thank you for this time. I'm not sure.
Mayor and Council, I'd like to suggest a 10-minute break.
We are.
Everyone
Yep.
needs the restroom.
Thank you so much.
Great idea.
Can we recess till 10:20?
Yeah, 10 minutes, yeah.